But I genuinely get really terrified for getting that horrible DM one day that just pushes me over the edge.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more, all to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel and this podcast. Our guest today is Olivia Frazier. She's a content creator, model, and she was a cast member from season 9 of Married at First Sight in Australia. I wanted to have Olivia on the show today because she has shared some of her experiences during, and post production on Married at First Sight in Australia. She filmed in 2021. Her season came out in 2022. And she's been through a lot. Before we get into this episode, I do want to let everyone know that there's some very serious discussions about suicidal ideation, her experience while filming, and the emotional toll that the entire experience of production and the show airing has had on her mental health. We have a very authentic and genuine conversation about what it feels like going through this and how it has impacted her and the stress that it's put on her mental health. So before listening, just be aware that this is a deep episode. She was edited into a villain character on the show, and it impacted her partnership with her husband from the show, Jackson. It impacted her job, her relationship, her family, her home. This is a real deal. We are basically watching gladiator games from the Roman Empire, and we're putting our own in these battles on reality TV in these productions, and we are taking no care of the folks that are entertaining other people and dealing with the repercussions of production, edits, and storytelling in a manner that is incredibly detrimental to a person's mental health. And today, Olivia is going to be very open and transparent about how this impacted hers. She's an awesome, awesome human, a wonderful guest, and I am so grateful for her vulnerability. And I hope that when you watch this, you watch it with an open heart and see Olivia as a human being first and a reality TV cast member somewhere later after that. And I hope that learning her story and hearing her story helps you watch reality TV, whether it's Married at First Sight or any other show, with your eyes wide open. Today, our guest is Olivia Frazier. Olivia is a content creator, a model, and was on the cast of Married at First Sight Australia Season 9. Olivia, thank you for coming on the show today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. I'm really well. How are you?
I'm well. I don't know about the really, but I love that for you.
It's the colds.
Yeah, no kidding. You and me both. But we'll power through.
Got it. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I am glad you're here. I know I had another alum on my show. I think it was over the summer. Can't believe it's December already. This is crazy. It's like the end of the year.
I know. I feel like we blinked and the year's over.
Seriously, me too. I'm glad to have you here. I always ask my guests the same question at the beginning. I'm curious your answer because I'm guessing that when you were growing up, your goal was probably not to be on Married at First Sight. So when you were growing up, what did you want to be? How did that change over time, all the way up to becoming a reality TV star?
I actually wanted to be an actress when I was little. I pretty much stuck to that until my early 20s. So, and here we are, not being an actress.
Kind of like by proxy.
Yeah, I know. So I wanted to be an actress. I did pretty well. I went and did a drama course in the UK, like fresh out of high school, and then sort of realized that I'm not a very good actress because I just I don't know. I think like being myself is the most fun. So it was kind of like I was bending all the roles that I was given into just like being myself, kind of like Ashton Kutcher, like you know how Ashton Kutcher is just Ashton Kutcher and everything. So I realized I was a really bad actress, and yeah, just sort of messed around a bit in the UK for a while.
So then you decided to just play yourself on Married at First Sight.
Yeah, funny how that works, isn't it?
Well, when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a like WWE wrestler. But as I grew older, I wanted to be like a writer and a filmmaker and all this stuff. And it's so funny because I just, in a million years, would have never suspected I would end up on a reality TV show, and that my like life's work would become trying to change the industry. So it never works out how you think as a kid.
I feel like you somewhat are a writer though, because you're trying to and I think you're doing a really, really good job of like rewriting the ethics behind reality TV and trying to actually instill some.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. And you know, it's funny because like my marketing career, and I mean, I'm like a writer first. I'm always telling a story of some sort. So now we've just got to tell the right story about these experiences.
Yeah, exactly. The truth.
So admittedly, I haven't seen your season. I know it just came to the States. Maybe I looked it up and now I'm forgetting. I looked it up Friday. You can stream it here, but and maybe it's
Right.
Hulu. I forget. Anyway, so I haven't seen it, admittedly, but I've seen clips. I've listened to you on other shows. I've read a lot about you, and I cannot. You know, I sit here and I'm like, I had it rough, and I didn't have a bad edit. My relationship had kind of a bad edit, but I didn't have a bad edit. And I think it's like incredibly hard in the best case scenario, let alone what it's like in the worst case scenario. And you were on the Back to Reality podcast said the greatest Maps villain of all time. Like, what a badge
Yeah.
of honor, right? Like, wow. So,
It's kind of like, oh, if you're gonna be bad, you may as well be the worst. But at the same time, it sucks. It sucks. It sucks.
that's
Like
true.
even I've been out in public with my friend who didn't have like from the show who didn't have a bad edit at all. Like she got quite like Selena, and people like will ask for photos with her, and then they'll be like, "Oh, fuck you, Olivia," and it's like. And she's like, "Is that what it's like for you?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like people
Total
don't
different
like me.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the complete like just the contrast of it.
So, how did you end up on being on the cast of the show or get casted? Did you apply? Did somebody reach out to you or?
Yes, so I actually applied when I was 25. So I'm 30 now. So it's been a 5 year ordeal. I applied for season 7, and so I had just broken up with my boyfriend of 5 years, like literally earlier that day. So I'm sitting in my lounge room, a bottle of wine deep, and I think season 6 had just wrapped. So they put like an advert for apply for maths for next season. So I was like, I'm single now, I may as well. So I started the application, I didn't even finish it. And I got hit up by producers a few days later being like, finish your application. And I was like, oh, okay, like, let's see how it goes. And then, I don't know, I just sort of pushed through with it. I was a bit of a hot mess. It got to like proper, like, months and months and months later. And they'd been chasing me and I'd done everything. And then they'll look like, we think that you're just a bit too young. Like, please come back next year. I was like, yeah, sweet, whatever. Went back the next year,
So,
properly
were
got
you
to
like,
my boss.
you were 25, 26 at that time?
Yeah, started the application when I turned 25. And then by the time it
Okay.
got to like almost filming, I was 26. Tried again, then like applied again the next year. I could have just reached out and been like, hey, what's up? But like, I am like, not to toot my own horn, but like I'm humble to a fault in that like I won't assume that people like even now like
Remember
I
you.
don't assume that, yeah, like I just don't think that people remember me or know me or anything like that. So I go through the whole thing again. They're like, just reach out, and I'm like, oh sorry, like I just didn't think. So got through to season 8, was signed on. The match that they had me with pulled out a few days before the wedding. So smart man. Smart man, what a genius. I'm like, what red
Do you know
flags?
why he pulled out? Did you ever find out why he pulled out?
No, no. So I don't know. I like if you pulled out of season 8 Married at First Sight Australia, congratulations, you dodged a bullet. Not necessarily me, just production. Maybe both. Who knows? Um, but yeah, and then season 9 just fell into it organically. Like they knew that they wanted me, and they had 3 years of interviews, auditions, psychology tests, um, my medical records for 3 years straight. So much trauma in the meantime, like in between like my first audition and probably filming it, like I'd been pretty, sorry, trigger warning, but I'd been pretty violently sexually assaulted. I'd lost my dad. There was obviously COVID, and production was aware of all this stuff. So they're just like watching me live my life over these years and accumulating all of these like horror stories and like trauma in my life before the show. And they're just
And
sitting
you're
there
so
plotting.
young. And you're so
Yeah.
young still.
Yeah. 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 So,
Do you think, and this is something like you don't have to answer this really directly, but I'll start saying this. I have this theory that the psychological exams, the getting to know you, the seeing pictures of your past. I don't know if you had to do that. I had to send pictures of like all my ex-girlfriends and my friends and pictures of me at the gym and pictures of me at the beach and like all this stuff, right? In the moment, you just think like, oh, they're probably trying to figure out my type for women. They're probably trying to make sure that I do normal things with my friends, that I'm healthy and work out. Like I'm just rationalizing these things in my head. And then like as time has passed, and it's really been like probably the last year when I've started to process all of this stuff, I'm like, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. And I actually now think that they use all of that information and all of those psychological exams to cast you in a role they've already predetermined. And I think that at least in my show, they actually, because it's 15 men, 15 women, I think that they actually have like several people cast to play a specific character. Because once I got connected with my now ex-wife Danielle, they sent home the other guys that were like a little bit older, a little bit more steady in their careers, a little bit more successful in terms of like financials and owning homes and all that stuff. And I felt like, yeah, again, in retrospect, that they casted me to be sort of this like stable, older, likely to get married person. Do you think that they used this information about you to like cast you to a specific role, and that they knew you'd be emotional, so they could just like pull your strings?
100%. I've just come to the realization, like, recently on like how in depth they manipulated me, and like how they got others on the cast to manipulate me into conflict and bait me into conflict. Because I, yeah, I'm just like, oh my god, like all the I thought about like, so you know what I mean when I say this, but like you're always going through things that were filmed, and not so much like what was shown, but like how like your experiences and things like that, and like no, like it's sort of like in the Hunger Games. When have you seen the Hunger Games? When Peter has to do like real or not real.
Yeah.
That's like it's the same like psychological trauma, right? So I'm thinking about like all the conflict I got into on the show, and I'm like, wow, I was manipulated by that because somewhere in my psychological test before filming, like they would have realized that I won't have conflict for myself, but I'll always stick up for somebody else. And so on the show, I was fighting with this other girl because I was sticking up for another person. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so right. Like I would be sitting there and she would be coming at me and I would just be like, whatever, like water off a duck's back, it's about me. And then I'd see her pick on somebody else and I'd lose it. I'm like, I reckon that was probably production telling her, because they're all trying to manipulate me. Like there's just
Right.
all
And
these
they knew the
epiphanies.
way to, yeah, it's like they knew the way to get you riled up was to have her pick on somebody else.
Yeah, pick on the weaker man and Olivia will bite.
Jeez.
And
This is
Olivia's got to be
like,
the villain. So
do you think you were cast as the villain ahead of time, or do you think they edited you into the villain because they had the material and had figured out how to portray you that way?
I still don't know. I think when the show was filming, it really could have gone either way. So my thing with my show was I had a big feud with another girl, and we were both like in reality we were both as bad as each other, like in terms of like the conflict and fighting styles and stuff like that. Like we were both not good, and it would be really easy for me to say that she's worse than me, but I'm going to own my shit and say like no, we were both bad. And it really could have gone either way, and I think they probably had enough material of her to make her the villain across the board. But I think with mine, my story started out very sympathetic in that, like, I had lost a lot of weight. I'd literally just lost my father. I had the love story. I was the only, like, my husband and I were the only genuine relationship on that show, on that series. We were the only matched couple that stayed together post show. So
Doesn't
all
that
the
make you wonder why they would want to edit you into a villain when you could have been a success story?
I think it's because it's like the good girl gone bad thing. So my first couple of episodes, I was the absolute darling. There was like so much love online for me and my husband, but I couldn't enjoy it because I knew that like I knew what was coming, and it just felt like yeah. And I think even that like fed into the villain edit because it was like the audience felt betrayed. And I got so many like, oh, your mask slipped, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, I was just genuine and authentic the whole time. And they put me on a pedestal and then like slammed me down into the ground. Like, and you guys are along for the ride.
And they like manifested or story arced this role for you to play and this character for you to play. And it just, that's the thing with this too. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. We are, as viewers, not us, but like we as viewers watching these things, our minds want to believe what we're seeing, right? Like seeing is believing, and there's got to be something psychologically. And when you see something, even if in the back of your head you know this is edited, this is manipulated, these aren't real situations, all of that stuff, there's this piece of you that like kind of wants to believe it, or almost does believe it, even knowing that. And what I think is so unfortunate is that people will not have that wherewithal to stop for a second and remind themselves. Instead, they want to like project whatever they've got going on inside onto others. And then the other piece of that I've really like the last week thought about, why does every single reality show have a villain? Every is there always a villain in a group of people, or is that manipulated and developed and edited so that we have that storyline arc because it's something people now expect?
Man, it's definitely, I think it just is like there in every story, every fairy tale, there's a villain and a victor. And it's, yeah, I understand that it has to be, but I just don't, I'm like, I would happily be the villain if one, I deserved it, and two, if people would understand that it's just edited and it's not who I am, and there's that barrier of like, it's just for TV. You know what I mean? Like actors get it. Like you see, like we know that Jack Gleason isn't actually as bad as Joffrey Baratheon on Game of Thrones. Like we know that there's a distinction between the two, and it's like that needs to be the same for reality TV, and people just can't wrap their brains around it. It's like, yes, it's my face, yes, it's my voice, yes, it's my name, but this ain't me. This is not what happened. This is not the context. This isn't even like a real environment. We're in a fake marriage in some completely removed from reality environment, like some dystopian wasteland in the middle of Sydney where we're not even allowed to leave our rooms without permission. Like this isn't real. Like I don't. It's just reality. Oh,
Yeah, I know. That's the whole thing. And I have a petition at moveon.org, which is right now it's only for the US because it's
oh,
a
don't worry, I signed it.
anyway. Okay. So, but yeah, that whole petition is to just put a reminder at the beginning to remind people, hey, this is edited, this is manipulated, you're seeing things out of order, you might not be seeing things in context. Watch it for entertainment. Leave these people alone, basically. And that's the thing, is like it goes back to that. I think people want to believe what they see, but also reality TV in its infancy, which actually started in the 80s with like talk shows like the Jerry Springer show or Cops, which I don't know if you're familiar with either of those, but
Yeah.
yeah. And those were, so they were almost kind of like the talk shows were a little bit, a little bit organized, but like Cops, you're watching people get arrested in real time in real life. And so it gives, and then in the, with Survivor and stuff, it kind of gave you this, we might be putting people in a situation, but we're just, hey, we're innocent camera people following them around in their normal life. And that's not the case. I don't know how it was, for you across the board, but like we had very little say in what we did, what we said, what we talked about, where we went. They would kind of ask us and then not do any of it. But, for the most part, it's just you're in manufactured situation, in manufactured scenes with manufactured conversations. And then after that, it's just completely edited however the heck they want to tell the story they are determined to tell.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, yeah. We also had the So I think it's pretty terrible across the board, but we had the added pressure of we were filming during a lockdown. So we had the whole you're not allowed to do anything because we have a duty of care. Your talent, if you contract COVID, then that's the whole production shut down, and or like you're out and we can't film without you, obviously, and things like that. And we were having daily COVID tests. We weren't allowed to leave our room without a chaperone.
Did they say that was a COVID protocol?
They said it was a COVID protocol. And
I don't
yeah, we
believe
weren't.
that.
I know. Well, because I'd heard stories from the year before us. They were pretty, and the year before that, like they were allowed to do basically whatever they wanted, and then, but then they've kept the chaperone thing and the not allowed to leave your room thing for the season after. So I think they worked out that it was really good with being able to control us. So even then, like there's always like house AP that's like keeping an eye on you, like living in Sky. So it's called Sky Suites, which is like the hotel that we're in, and they rent out 2 floors. So all the participants are on one floor, and then they have like production on the floor below, and like spare rooms and stuff. But yeah, no, they had house APs, they had security guards on the floors, all that sort of stuff. So we couldn't get away with anything really. Like they knew where we were at all times.
The crazy thing about that is that's one thing that I've stated in my charge, basically. So we have the National Labor Relations Board here in America, which is their function. They're a government agency, and their function is to ensure that like labor laws are enforced and practiced. So if they're not enforced and practiced, you can report this company to, or a company to, the National Labor Relations Board. Short for that is the NLRB, and then they can actually charge, fine, and like force companies to change stuff. So I filed a charge with them, and one of my claims was that I was basically like imprisoned, and because you couldn't leave your hotel room, and you had to get permission, and you didn't have food. I didn't have adequate food or water. They wouldn't let me have my credit cards or money so I could order DoorDash or some food delivery system. So you're just like, you're stuck in this room. And by the way, it ain't a suite. It's like a bed, a chair that I wouldn't sit in for $1,000, and then a bathroom that, is spot cleaned every time. And so it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's so you're sitting there and you're like, you're trapped in this room. And this is something that, people, and we'll have to talk about this in a second. Well, you signed up for it. My favorite kind of people that lack the majority of any kind of critical thinking skills. But you sign, let's say You knew you were going to be locked away in a hotel room on a floor. There was going to be security. You weren't going to be allowed to leave. That was my situation too. And let's just say, okay, I'm going to sign up for that. You know what you don't understand about that? What it's actually like, unless you've been in prison, what it's like to be isolated away from people and not being able to participate in your daily routines, talk to the people who are your support system, actively. Like for me, my mental health is very reliant on me taking lots of walks. Like I have to take walks. Even in the cold here, I bundle up and I go on walks because it's just good for my mind. I couldn't do any of that. And so, like, even the little things that you don't think anything about, that is part of the structure that keeps you kind of like clear headed and sane to the best of your ability, that's all stripped away. And until you go through that, you have no idea what you're actually signing up for and the psychological toll that takes on you.
It's just, oh my God, you signed up for it. I completely agree. And it's like, you don't understand the liberty of going for a walk to like clear your head until you can't do it. Or like you're a grown up who can't go answer. Like we were lucky in that like we could get like DoorDash and think like we could cook for
Must be
ourselves.
nice.
I know it was a service department and stuff, but like it was no, 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 no. It was like the fact that I couldn't like that we wanted to order like it was like once or twice where we wanted to order wine because like my husband and I were like, oh, like let's have a wine and pasta night since we're stuck here. The house AP came to our room because we weren't allowed to go pick up our own like Uber Eats. Like we had to get it delivered and then go ask a producer to go downstairs to collect our Uber Eats. And he came up and he was like, okay, you guys have ordered 2 bottles of wine, but I'm only going to give you one because duty of care, I have to make sure that you don't get too drunk. And it's like,
That's only because there weren't cameras. If there were
I
cameras, it would have been like,
know.
hey, we actually got you 2 extra bottles of
Yeah,
wine.
but like my husband and I were like, I'm 28 years old. My husband's 31. Like, we are adults. If we want to order 2 bottles of wine, and if we want to drink 2 bottles of wine, which we won't, because I'm not like a big drinker, but like, it's our call. We're adults. We're off the clock. This is like a Friday night. The cameras have gone. Like, we're not gonna. We just want to enjoy ourselves and be adults. And like that was, we were completely stripped of any sort of, yeah, just basic dignity, I guess.
Right. Well, that's what I always say. I'm like, you don't understand that they strip away your autonomy and your dignity and your ability to like to regulate your own life. And then you're locked in these hotel rooms. It's nice that you guys were able to be locked in together.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, because it was difficult on our end, at least at the very beginning, because they want every interaction to be caught on camera, right? But then my question for you is: have you guys thought, and by you guys, I mean in Australia, in the reality TV space, and the people that you know, the fact that you're maybe off the clock, but they're still in control of everything that you do and you don't do, that you're actually like technically not off the clock, because
never,
that's the whole
never.
that's the whole thing here in the States of the claim that people have made in lawsuits is like, since you're telling me what I can and can't do for 24 hours a day for however many weeks that is, like technically like you're working, because otherwise you could have autonomy and do whatever you want.
So like even like post show interviews and things like that, like I'd be like, oh, because I didn't get to do very many because they silenced me pretty quickly. They were like, oh, for your own mental health, we're gonna cut your media off because I don't know, we don't want to expose you to more hate and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. And then in hindsight, I'm like, oh, you just didn't want me to tell the truth.
Do you think they know what they're doing when they edit these things? Like, I find it so hard. I think there's a mix myself. I think there's some ignorance to like not really understand like what the hell's going on in the world. But then I also think there's like this level of irresponsibility and lack of taking responsibility, where they're just like, oh wow, you're getting death threats, okay, well we're just not going to put you in front of the media. And then it's like you get all of the damage, all of the trauma, and then none of the quote benefits of like having a platform you can make money off of
No.
if you
Well,
choose.
I lost my whole career because of what they did to me on that show. So I was studying to be a teacher. I was working for as like an admin assistant for the English department in one of the most elite schools in Australia, who was basically like preparing me to finish university and hopefully go work for them. So I basically secured my dream job before even getting my teaching license. And I was getting the best of the best training, not only at university, but in my workplace. And because of what they portrayed on the show and the subsequent articles that came out, there is no way I'll ever be able to be a teacher. Like when my name is synonymous with revenge pornography, which is just clever editing in reality, who's going to let that teach their children? What parent would let that teacher be a big influence on their child's life? Nobody. And it would be an absolute uproar if I did go into teaching.
I don't go on Reddit, but I did click on one because I saw a comment about that and how they would never let you near their children. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you brought it up, that has to be so devastating. And to people who say, yeah, because I've had my own job struggle since the show, and I've really like I've lost a lot of patience for a lot of people that I've been very patient with in the past. But like the reality is you can't plan for that, right? You can go into these shows with the best intentions, but your aspirations and desire and of working with children and being a teacher, like teachers and nurses are doing God's work. I always say that. I'm so grateful for them because they are the most patient, caring people in the world. To even want to go into that, and I know you're not going to become a millionaire by teaching, so it's just something you're passionate about, and that's just been stripped away from you because a reality TV production company and reality TV show decided that they wanted to edit you in a certain way that would eventually like ruin your career aspirations and your life. I just
The whole time I was filming, all I like, I think I'm just so naive in that, like, I got there, I absolutely fell in love with my husband straight away. And then everything after that, I was so careful about, like, okay, what I say, what I do, because in the back of my mind, I didn't think, like, I'm going to finish a show and go be an influencer and do OnlyFans and all this sort of stuff and make all the money and be all like with like the famous people and shit like that. I did not anticipate that in my wildest dreams. In my brain, and what my husband and I started to do once we finished the show was, okay, I went on the show, I met the love of my life, we're going to move in together and we're going to go back to our jobs. He went back to plumbing, I went back into my admin role, I went back to uni, and then the show starts airing and everything gets flipped upside down.
yeah, and I want to go into that because I have read a bit about um, you and Jackson, and it sounds like you two really did fall in love. And,
Yeah.
I always say, I'm like, hey, I think these experiments can work. I really do. It's the other stuff of how they're produced and the damage it does to people and how it ruins people's lives that I'm like, that's where, you got to draw the line. So you two really did fall in love. And you said, I think I saw it was like for 10 months you guys were together before the show started airing. Is that accurate?
So after the show started airing, so we met in September 2021 and then we stayed together until August 2022.
And that's when the show came out.
Oh, the show came out in the January, so we had a good like
Oh,
six
okay.
months together, and then the show, and then it was pretty horrible. Like we probably had a good 6 months, and then a horrible, what, four?
And you had said, and I can relate to this, you had said in a couple interviews that you think you guys might have still been together if the show never aired. What
Mm-hmm.
happened, or what are you comfortable sharing about that?
So, I'm happy to go for it. So, we really connected on the show. We were very stable, very unbreakable, unshakable on the show. The show did air our relationship to look really toxic, but that was all heavily edited, which we can get into later. But yeah, and like they definitely were always angling to show that I liked Jackson more than he liked me, which is obviously a really horrible dynamic to live with later on. It absolutely wasn't the case. Like we were, and I think anybody on set would tell you that we were very in love from very early on. And then I just sort of noticed before the show started airing, so when the adverts for it started going, and I had tremendous anxiety during filming. During filming was when I started having suicidal ideations. So when the advert started airing, there was just we had very different reactions to it, in that I was anxious and not really prepared to enjoy it at all, whereas he was really excited about it, and he was like, oh my god, my face is on TV, like this is amazing. And I'm like, okay, but this is gonna be
Both
horrible for us.
fair ways to feel, but like you guys,
Yeah,
yeah, don't
absolutely,
compliment.
absolutely. And I think I've been really bitter for a while with him, in that he was really excited about the show and about being famous and about everybody seeing it and loving him and things like that, whereas my experience was always going to be very, very different. We were always just going to have very different experiences with the show airing. We had very different experiences with the show filming. So I think he was really excited to be famous and enjoy that, and I couldn't do that. I don't know. So we very much fell in love, and then the show airing was a huge strain on our relationship.
Was it primarily just that you both had like a different experience watching it back and seeing what happened in the show versus what happened in reality? Or were there like things in that edit that like you guys started questioning each other?
So it was very much the different experiences, and I think he wanted to go out and enjoy it and be famous and go clubbing, and I'm pretty sure as soon as he realized that, or I think as soon as he got a taste for the fame and stuff, I'm pretty sure he just wanted to go out and be single. I don't know if he would agree with that, but I could tell, when you start feeling like a nuisance in the relationship, or feeling like you're holding them back from what they really want to do. And I think before the show aired, I think he very much wanted to be in a relationship with me, but then when he got a taste for a different lifestyle, I think he very much wanted to go, and proof is in the pudding. He ended up making out with a 20-year-old in a seedy bar, while I was at home with his mum. So that was fun to wake up to that morning.
How did you find out, if you don't mind me asking?
Social media. So he came home. He got brought home he was very, very drunk, so he got brought home by the police at 3:00 in the morning. We were down visiting his mum in another state, so I'd gone home with her earlier in the night, and then he got brought home at 3:00 in the morning by police. And then we had sex, and then woke up in the morning, and I had a shower, and he was having breakfast with his mum, and I just checked my phone, and there was, first thing on social media was my husband kissing a girl in a bar the night before.
Oh my God. Wow. Wow.
So, and you know what? I was so hated. People were congratulating him. There was very, very little sympathy. It was mostly the general consensus was good job, Jackson, she deserves it. Sucked in, Olivia. And this is my whole thing was, I'm having death threats at this point. I'm having death threats daily. It's taking everything in me to not follow through with all of these suicidal ideations, and it's horrible. And there's this huge thing, and everything that I could say to myself, and everything that my mom and my brother, the only thing that we could say is big payout, big tax. And that meeting Jackson and how in love and how nice of a relationship it was worth it. And to have that thrown back in my face.
Wait, who's telling you that?
Oh, like my mom and my brother. Like it was just like, okay, no, at least I got Jackson out of this experience. At least I had Jackson out of this experience, and then he cheated on me and
Yeah.
ruined it all. And ruined it all.
Oh my gosh. I am so sorry that you I don't even I don't know what's worse, like finding out on social media or finding out another way or not knowing at all. Those are all very bad
I know.
feelings, but that had
Yeah.
to be devastating. And then,
Oh, it was hard.
you
Well,
know,
I fled to Scotland, so
yeah,
so I booked a flight. So I found out on the Saturday morning, booked a flight for the Monday, tested positive for COVID at the
of
airport, so
course. Oh my, they
had to
quarantine
stay.
you there?
No, so I had to call Jackson to come pick me up from the airport. And then in between, because I was done, I was like, see ya, I'm out. And then in the 2 weeks that I had to like stay in quarantine before I could go to Scotland, our manager at the time told us like it'll be really good for both of you if you just stay together and like work through it. And I was like so mentally ill. I was like, no, I've got to make this work because I've gone through like the most horrific thing in the world to get this relationship. So
It's
we're
all you
still
have to
together.
show for it.
Yeah, and he never apologized for it. By the way, it wasn't until like maybe earlier this year I was like I said something on an Instagram live, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "You never apologized for it. I showed you the Instagram post and was like, what the damn hell?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm just really unhappy." It's like, you're unhappy, you're unhappy, you're unhappy. Imagine how I feel right now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. How are you managing? I again, it's like it's hard for me to put myself in your shoes, which is why I'm asking kind of baseline questions here. But what like how are you managing this? Because then I remember when I got divorced, and it my life just it just for like a year and a half, it just felt like my life was happening to me and I wasn't a part of it, which is very different than like what I've learned in therapy over the years is like take things as they come, do what you can, let go of everything you can't control, like all of that kind of stuff. And I just felt like I had done a really good job before all of this, kind of controlling what I can and then just not dealing with the stuff that I can't, right? And then when this happened, it was like I had no control. And so I was like, okay, I'm getting a divorce, I'm getting, I lose my job, like all this stuff is just happening to me and I have no control over any of it. And I just remember like I remember I said it before, but like December 22nd last year, I was like, this is rock bottom. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And I again didn't even have the bad edit. Just, I mean, I had a lot of people talking shit at the time, but being accused of being a cheater and all of this stuff. But it's just like I, I have this ability to like not care that much of
I'm
what
so
other people
jealous.
think of me. Yeah, but again, it's like I know those things aren't true, and it sometimes it still gets to me. So anyway, long story short, like what are you doing at this time to like you said you were having suicidal ideation and all of these thoughts about it, like how did you keep your head above water when honestly like you had nothing but bad things happening to you?
So when the show was airing, I was really not okay. I was living up very isolated with just Jackson and I up in like my hometown. And it was literally like Jackson would go to work and I would just stay in bed all day because I would be like, if I stay in bed, I can't kill myself. And yeah, and I'd lie in bed like thinking about like the knives in the kitchen. Like this is so dark, but it's the truth. I'd lie in bed thinking about the knives in the kitchen. I'm like, well, if I stay in here, I'm not going to the kitchen. We're fine. And then Jack would get home, and I don't think Jack really understood mental health and like how bad things were. Like he asked me once what anxiety feels like, so that just to really and he was my lifeline. Like he was all like the only person that I really had contact with besides my mum and my brother, who I felt as much as I called them and like leaned on them, I also felt like really sheepish that I brought like all of this attention. And like my mum copped it as well. Like my mum was on the show and it got edited poorly. And like we
Mine too. That's
Yeah.
awful. Like
It's
they
horrible.
definitely didn't
It's like,
sign up for it.
no, and it's like, oh my God, I've exposed you to, anyway. So, yeah, so like that was really dark, but it's again, like, I think you just have to really focus on what you can control, like you said. And for me in that time, it was like, okay, I can control not getting out of bed and doing something bad. And I think it's just been like a step after step with that and that sort of thinking. I was pretty lucky in that my mum is a counselor. So
I was okay. You took the next question. Not that what's your mom do for a living, but
yeah, well, my mum's a teacher, but she has a master's in counselling. So
okay.
or art therapy, but same thing. So my mum has, and I've been through a lot of therapy. I had some pretty serious things going on as a young lady. So I'm very intelligent. So I remember my coping skills. I remember how to do that. I got put on some really good apps for suicide prevention. So I was on 3 different apps. No support from the network. So I
That was
think,
going to be my next question was what kind of support did you get from the network, from the production company? Were they aware? Here's the thing. This is the ignorance again. Like they can't not be aware that this is going to impact you. There's just
oh, 100%. Yeah, so the only support I got from them, so there's obviously the psychologist that um, comes with the show. So she's behind the scenes and things like that. She's not on
on
air.
their payroll.
Yeah, and she'd known me for so long because I'd been in the audition process for so long. She actually left after our season, so I think my season was like the final straw for her.
Good.
Mm. So she was pretty outwardly disgusted during filming with what they were doing. She couldn't really hide that.
Like
Um,
what was one of the things she was disgusted with that they did to you?
so there was, so the a commitment ceremony. I was basically getting railroaded by the experts, to the point
Like
where
the
I was,
relationship experts, the ones that like pair
yeah,
you,
the
the matchmakers.
experts.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
The experts, who, by the way, used to be called psychologists and now have
Yeah.
to be experts. So I'm like, what happened there? But so
Think you know.
yeah, I'm like, why were we demoted from psychologists to experts? But yeah, so there's a very infamous scene where I'm sitting on the couch and I say, as for empathy, I don't have any. And that's because they'd just been going at me for, I want to say, half an hour, 45 minutes on like all the ways that I don't have empathy. So they had like drilled it into me. You don't have empathy for this reason, for that reason, for this reason, for that reason. I'm sobbing, like can't breathe, full blown panic attack, like on the couch, just like, no. My castmates, most of them were telling them to stop because they were going too hard and they were so wrong. And they just kept on going and going and going until they got that line out of me. And so the next day I woke up and I had messages on my phone from my castmates saying like, last night was disgusting. We're all talking about it in our boxies, like how wrong it was what they just did to you. Like we're all appalled. And so we woke up at 9 and we had a little bit of filming to do and I was just not up for it. So we had like 2 tasks to do and I was just so distraught. And so I filmed the first one because my producer was like, it's really nice, like don't worry, like you'll love it. And it was me and my husband were looking at our like film of our reactions to each other on our wedding day. So I was like, okay, like that's nice. So we did that and it was very sweet, like a little pick me up. And we finished that at about lunchtime. And I was like, I need to see the psychologist. I need to see Teresa. And they're like, okay, we've just got one more exercise to shoot and then you can go see Teresa. And I was like, okay. And it was like a couples swap, not couple swap, but like you had to like swap tasks with another couple. And of course I got paired with the girl that I was like having conflict with.
Shocking.
So they like just film, like you have to set her and her husband a task and then you can go see the psychologist and then we'll film her tasks, like their task back after you see the psychologist. And I was like, okay. And we had to write each other letters, and it turned into a huge fight with me and the executive producer because they were trying to force me to write all of these trigger words that had been used in fights between this girl and I. So it turned into a huge negotiation instead of just like a simple task, and they were trying to like make me criticize her voice and trying to make me say all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not writing that. That's a trigger word. I'm not writing that. And like, luckily I had the wherewithal because my husband was like, Liv, just write it. I'm like, no. And like, I was like, I'm writing in my handwriting. Like, it's exactly what I'm going to say. I'm going to be so careful about everything. Because by this point I'd learnt, I could see what they were doing. And it turned into like, so that was lunchtime, and it was 7 o'clock at night before I could get in, before they let me go see the show psychologist. And I was distraught. I was not okay. I told the house AP that I want to jump off the balcony.
Were they not taking you seriously when you
No,
were asking for help?
no. I said I want to jump off the balcony, and the house AP was like, don't tell me that.
They're like, don't tell me that and let me set up cameras is probably their mindset is just deplorable.
Don't tell me that. And so I went and saw the psychologist, and she had nothing else to say. She couldn't say anything to me other than like, you need a break. Just you and Jackson have the weekend to yourselves. Take it so easy. Just be kind to yourself. Let him look after you. You just need to be loved on, and like he will, and like he absolutely would have, because he's very protective and nurturing and caring. And so that's what she told me. She was like, I have no advice other than just like, let him look after you this weekend. And so I go back to my room, and we have to film the other half of the letter writing task. And shock, because obviously she's had to go back and report what's going on and what advice she gave me, because she's on their payroll, and the letter writing task means that Jackson has to stay away from me for the weekend. So like, no. And so you see me have this like outrageous laugh, like reading the task, because I'm like hysterical, because I'm like, cool, I'm like SOS mode right now. I'm not okay. And the only thing that the psychologist, the legitimate expert, could tell me to do is just like let my husband look after me. And they take him away, and they took away my phone, they took away my work laptop, they took away my personal laptop, and just like left me in a room by myself with like no way to even reach out for help when I'm already in crisis mode. Yeah.
I don't have words.
Oh, it's
and
shocking.
they knew.
And they knew. And they knew.
And I'm sure that the psychologist, what did you say her name was?
Teresa.
Teresa. I'm sure Teresa probably even added context to say, like, I don't think she's well, like she needs time away. And instead of ensuring your wellness, they lock you in a hotel room. Is that like what?
I've heard
It
a
is
story.
awful.
I've heard a story of a participant in the year before me who got locked in a hotel room with nothing. He was in his boxer shorts, no shoes, no nothing, just in his boxer shorts. And I don't know the context, but they locked him in a room, and he broke out, went downstairs, and was walking through Sydney in his boxer shorts until he found police to be like, I am being like held against my will. And then producers like somehow mulled that over with New South Wales Police.
That is insane. And you know what's funny is I have said before, I don't know, I like scary movies, so I watch a lot of scary movies ever since I was a kid. I compare it when people are like, well, you could just leave, because that's the other one. There's, you signed up for it, you can just leave. You know, there's like these things that people just repeat because they heard someone else say it. And I always say, I'm like, well, imagine this. I decide I'm going to leave that hotel room, right? I don't have a wallet. I don't have a phone. I don't have any money. I don't have credit cards. I don't have anything. I don't have a passport, no identification. it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're like running away from Leatherface and his crazy ass family, his crazy ass house. You get to the street, the cop comes up, or a random driver comes up, and you're like, "Help me, help me! I'm being held captive by a reality TV production." They're gonna
Mm-hmm.
think you're nuts
Not,
and keep going. But that he
yeah.
actually did that. I thought I
Mhm.
made that story up as a possibility, but it sounds like it
No,
actually happened.
no, 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 no. He actually did that.
Wow.
So, yeah, 'cause, it's just, and that's another thing. If you try to leave, they threaten you with a bad edit.
Oh yeah. Do you guys
Yeah.
have fees associated with you leaving?
Uh, no, I don't.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I don't
Yeah,
think so.
we did. If we left without producer's permission, it was a $50,000 in damages fee. That's not even the worst. So the worst part is that if you go against the edit or you break NDA, they can sue
Mhm.
you for $1 million each
Mhm.
time you do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's
No,
like, which by the way, that's retaliation and illegal in the United States. Like you
that's
can't
good.
do that. So
That's good.
that's, one of the things I'm doing, trying to fight and get this stuff like recognized by the federal government, but we'll see. But that I am so I didn't realize it was that bad that you were in that mental state and they didn't give you any support and in fact took away the support that was recommended by the psychologist working on the program.
Mhm. Yep. Mhm.
That's like unbelievable. It just doesn't seem real. Like what if you would have conducted self-harm or like
Would have been
where's
great
the
for ratings. Would have been great for ratings. That's
it's just
exactly where their head goes. Even so, like post show when the show's filming and I'm not okay, I'm lying in bed just trying to survive it. And bless my husband, he was not equipped for it. And that's something that he should have, if, if that's my only lifeline, they should have helped him to help me. But no, that I don't think that's ever a thought. But I had an incident with people coming to my home, and I've had plenty. That was the thing, like with all the backlash, everybody thinks that it's just online, and for most cases, it is mostly online. For me, I have had the misfortune of having a lot of things in the flesh, and I've told this story a few times, but the worst of the worst was people coming to my home. My husband is a plumber, so he went to an on-call job on a Saturday night, and as soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I see this car coming up and down my street, and eventually a car full of women, mature age women, get out of the car and start screaming from the street up at me in my little house with my little dog, just scared shitless. My neighbors called the police. I called the police. It
what
was
were they screaming?
die, Olivia. Olivia, you're a cunt. Fuck you, Olivia. You're a pig. Die, piggy. Like all these sorts of
My
stuff.
God.
It went on for a few minutes. Like it wasn't just like a little drive by. It was these women got out of the car
Which a
and
little drive-by is not okay either. People should keep
no.
their opinions of a reality TV show to themselves.
Hmm. But yeah, just to make me feel unsafe in my own home like that when I already didn't feel safe in public. Like I'd had wine glasses waved in my face at bars. I'd been just all sorts of things said to me at the supermarket. Like just no dignity for me out in public. And then to not feel safe at home is just another level of this is fucked. And so I did speak to the show because I did keep in contact with the show psychologist for a long time after the show had wrapped and airing, and because I really did trust her, and I think the fact that her disdain for production was palpable. So that's, I don't know if that was like a manipulation tactic to get me to say more or whatever, but the fact that she left after my season, I think
Yeah.
makes me feel
Says
pretty safe
something.
in that. But I said something I was like, I no longer feel like like it's nothing against you personally, but I want another psychologist, and I think the network should pay for that. They paid for 3 sessions. So after that, the network, so the network that the show airs on, because there's production and the network that they sell it to. So the
It's like
network paid,
News 9, right? Isn't it News 9?
yeah, Channel
Yeah.
9, yeah. So
Yeah.
Channel 9
Or
paid for,
Channel 9.
yeah. So after the incident at home, they paid for a security guard to stay at the front of my house for 2 nights.
The least they
And
could do. 2 nights, too. Two
two
nights.
nights,
Like,
two
what?
nights. And um, and then what else? And then they paid for 3 psychology appointments, external psychology appointments, and that's all the support I've
3.
received. 3, for the most hated villain on their show, for the worst reality TV villain in Australia, who's been pretty forthcoming about suicidal ideations, daily death threats. Like I think I went a full year of just daily death threats. I think September this year is probably like the first real break I've had from death
What do
threats, and then it
they
starts in another country.
what does that do to your I, wellness, I guess, lack thereof, maybe? What does that do when you see these threats, even if it's like a DM or a comment or, God forbid, someone say it in person? Like, what does that do to you? How does that make you feel?
It really depends on how I am that day. And sorry, I get really scared because like it gets really dark, and I do get really scared because I'm not out of the woods. Like I have my good days, I have my good spins, but I genuinely get really terrified for getting that horrible DM one day that just pushes me over the edge. And we've been close. We've been really close to that. So um I don't think I could ever do that to my mum and my brother, like, but you never know. You never know how, like, and I'm not stable. Like, I'm not a well person. I think I'm going to have to miss out on a lot that I wanted for my life because of the long-term effects of this show. Like, I don't think I'll ever have kids or have like I think I'll have like a good relationship in my future, but I don't think I could handle having kids anymore just because my brain doesn't function like a normal person. It doesn't, there's no organization in my head, and the days get really dark, and like there's such highs and lows that I just don't think I could ever have a family with that and be a mum and function and have, you know, kids that are well balanced when mummy's not well balanced.
I mean, first and foremost, I wish I could like give you a hug right now, but
Thanks.
I'm so sorry for all of that and everything that you've been through and everything that you're dealing with. I will, I obviously don't know you very well, but I think you're incredibly resilient, and I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I don't think that you're, we're all not well at some point, but like, and I understand and respect that, but you should give yourself a little bit more credit for being resilient and getting through the whole process is before the aftermath, right? And then the loss like that comes with losing your relationship, and the loss that comes with losing your career, and the loss that comes with losing that piece of you that you had beforehand, and you're still here, and you're still strong, and you're still talking about it, and you're still even if there's like a piece of you that feels like it's never going to be the same. And I know that feeling very well. So I don't want you to, don't be so hard on yourself. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with you.
Thank
You're
you.
just the way you are, and you're a product of
Yeah.
your experiences.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really sweet.
I mean it. I mean that. You're Here's the thing, and this is what I don't think people understand about doing this, and everyone has this. We all do, right? Even Jackson did, right? It was we are the celebrity side of it. Like, we all have this like desire to, in some way, shape, or form, be recognizable for something, right? Whether it's being on a show, whether it's your idea, whether it's a movie you make or a poem you write or a piece of content you create, whatever that is, a book you write, whatever it is, right? We all have that desire, but like there's a dark side of that. The side that you're speaking about that like can happen whether you're a villain or not. But when you're a villain, and I'm using quotes for those people that are listening, like when you're just a villain, it's like everything on steroids. It's you don't even get the balance. Like a lot of people, everybody gets hate, right? You could be Santa Claus on a TV show and there would be 30% of people that hate you. And all you're doing is giving gifts to kids. And there would still be 30% of people that hate you. But the reality is those people that hate you, they hate themselves. And there's something inside themselves that they hate because they should be doing shadow work, like in this journal, which I just do. Like I don't I don't have a link or a code or anything, but it's like what this does is it's basically forcing you to like look internally so that you can figure out like why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And all of these people that are hating you online, imagine what it would take. I guess I don't know. Maybe you have done this. I'm assuming you haven't. Imagine what it would take to drive by someone's house, get out of the car because you saw them on a TV show and you saw a handful of hours of their life and really only their relationship and want to say something. Like that's not about you. That is about them. And it's okay. That's the thing for me coming out of last year when it was so bad. People would want to make plans for the weekend. And I'm like, I honestly don't know what I'm doing in the next hour, let alone this weekend. And it's okay. And I was in a very dark place for a while, like longer than I've ever been. And I've been dealing with depression since I was a young kid, right? But like I think just taking it day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, like that's okay, right? There, like you got this next minute, right? Like you can handle the next
Yeah.
minute, and then you just got to do one more, and then before that, you can start doing 5 minutes at a time. And I hope that you can understand how resilient you are and how strong you are to go in front of the whole world and be made into something that you're not, and then have to live with the consequences and all the stuff that you've lost because of it. And you're just taking it day by day, and that's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have kids figured out right now or even your next relationship. You can just take it day by day until you start feeling like you can take it week by week. And then maybe you can take it month by month. And I'm I'm proud of you for
Yeah. Thank you.
sharing all of this because I
Thank
know
you. I don't think
it's
I've
I
talked about
can't even.
that in a long time, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I just I just don't I don't even know what to say. I feel so awful.
I don't want to make you feel awful.
No, for
No,
you. No,
no,
I'm
thank you.
fine.
Yeah. No, the only people that should feel awful are like production that do this to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And they don't, because I don't, it takes a different breed to be able to do that to people and sleep at night. So,
I am becoming more and more convinced that the stats are off and that there's more people that are sociopaths than we think. And I think things like reality TV, Reddit, the internet is giving people a mask to do bad things. And whatever that is, like we talked a little bit about this, I think right before we were recording, like it's like gladiator times, right? It's like we're putting our own people in the stadium, having them fight each other, manufacture this drama, and then portraying it as if it's real life so that the outside world can get in on the joke that's not really a joke. And it's very predatory. And when we look at our fellow human beings, what for whatever reasons they go on these shows, right? People have their different reasons. You can even make it, I've changed my mind, I think you can make a debate that there's probably the right reasons could be a whole bunch of things that I wouldn't personally consider the right reasons, but sure, make a case for it. But the reality is we're human beings watching human beings sharing pieces of their life in a manufactured setting that also has real life implications, and we should still treat them as human beings because guess what? Everybody makes mistakes, right? And guess what else? Some people make mistakes in front of everybody on TV in the public eye. And then some people get to make mistakes within the confines of their life with their family and friends. And think about how hard that is when that's happened to people or happened to someone, and then apply that to the whole world jumping in with commentary. It is a lot and people don't understand it. And again, I'm proud of you. I think you're incredibly brave for sharing, especially being vulnerable, but also you're very resilient. And remember that, because you're past, I believe, hopefully past the worst of it, and now it's just going to be, taking it and piling. I always say this the last year, I'm like, you know what, I'm just trying to pile up a couple W's. I'm going to get a couple wins, and then I'm going to get more wins, and then I'm going to start feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. And it's just, for every, and I do get a lot more love than I did. I get more love than I do hate in my inbox now. So I've worked really, really, really hard on social media to show like my genuine character and keep it real and funny and maybe like a little bit like too honest, if anything. Because that's what it was on the show. I was being too honest. I was being too vulnerable. Had no strategy, and that's what gave them the content to edit. But without the filter of editing and manipulation and immense stress, what people see on socials is exactly who I am. And I get more, I'm getting daily messages now of people being like, wow, this is really you. I'm so glad that I stuck around and followed you and saw this. Whereas a year ago, it was daily death threats. So
The
that's a
hate
win.
following, yeah, it is a win. The hate following is crazy, but you know what? Those people fall off when they find someone else to hate. So I'm sure a lot of them found that they could hate Alyssa with the last season, and then decided to follow her and unfollow you, which is, it's crazy, but like that's just the way people seem to be thinking. And then the other thing too is you're picking up now, which is probably like the best part, is people at some point are just following you because they're here for your story. And you'll still have some
Yeah.
hate followers, and I still have comments, just, and brace yourself, because when we share this, the hate is gonna hate, okay? and
Mm.
and we
Oh,
can
yeah.
shut, yeah, we can shut comments off if you want to, but the funny thing is, like, it's not funny, it's actually really disturbing. So I still probably 3, 4, 5 times a week get people commenting on my clip with Alyssa, like saying horrible things to her still. I'm like, and she, I don't know how she does it. I messaged her frequently and say, I don't know how you do this, but like you stay so like level headed about this. And even I, like, when people say bad things about me, sometimes I'm like very witty, and I try to, and I got to like control it. But the people that follow you, there's always going to be haters, I think, but we're also have people that are curious and that they love that they get to see the real you, and then it makes it more real, relatable to them. And those are your people. Those are the ones
Yeah.
that matter.
Oh, I would take one of those versus 100 hate follows. Like,
Exactly.
engagement means shit. Like, nah,
Yeah. No, it's
there's I like some people from my season are like, oh, whatever. Like Daniel, who was on my season of maths, he's so tough and just so far removed from it, where like I remember when the show was airing, he's like, whatever, like the haters can watch, it's just, more engagement, more eyes on, like, it's all money at the end of the day. And I'm like, you're so tough, like I would rather just like delete all socials.
I know. Well, hey, you know what? You can do that too. One of the things
Oh
I did
man.
that was so beneficial a year ago, I shut notifications off. So now I do social media on my time, and it's weird because you get like the DMs, and you get the primary, you get the like general, then you get the hidden, then you get the like really hidden, and
Hmm.
it's so layered and stuff. I don't even go in my DMs most of the time. I just don't. The Since starting the foundation, helping people is very polarizing. Trying to change something that people love or hate is very polarizing. So I still get a lot of hate for that. So yeah, I just like shut it off. And sometimes I'll say something snarky back. Sometimes I will just not even respond. And
It's
yeah,
best. It's
just,
best not
yeah,
to.
it is. It is.
I just
So I
block.
want to, that, well, I do that too. I do that too. Lastly, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to ask me anything. I'm curious if you could see, actually, let's do two last questions. One, what would you like to see changed first and foremost in maths or any reality TV? And then I'll ask one more after that.
So I think as far as maths, I think there needs to be more ethical productions, like not only in the editing, but in the actual filming. Participants need to be aware beyond the tiny little clause in your contract saying like you can be edited and defamed and manipulated and things like that. Besides that little thing in the contract, you need to be well educated before you begin filming. You need to know what, and I think like production just needs to be straight with you. Like, this is what we're trying to get out of you. Like, you in or not? Like, do you want to be like? It needs to just be a lot more transparent, and like the sleep deprivation, the food and water deprivation, all of like these horrible things that are designed to trigger your fight or flight response needs to just be cut. Like, there needs to be way more mental health, just everything ethical into filming. Like, I just shot something else with another network, and I'm like, oh, is this how it's meant to be treated? Like, it's a cute little show, and just it was like a 1-day shoot, and just the care and the thoughtfulness behind like my mental health and like experiences that I've gone through. Like, they triple checked that I was okay to do this show. And during filming, like, they're like, are you okay? Are you good? Are you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Like, what's up? Like, this is so much fun. And they're like, okay, good, as long as you're having fun. It's like, oh my God, like, this is what it's like to be treated
See,
well
it
on set
can
and
be
to
like
lead up
that.
to.
It can be done.
It's not hard. Like, so maths, for example, I was very clear with them, my trauma. I disclosed everything. I was very clear. And so with like, I know I've mentioned it before, but like me being sexually assaulted, they never once asked me about that. So, and Molshine never was like, hey, you good with this? And they were putting me in a room to live with a man for 3 months. Like, prior to my wedding, they were like, are you okay to sleep with a man? They never like said like, if you don't feel it, there's another room. Like, there was never a conversation had. And then this other thing that I filmed, like, I was never going to be alone with a man at all in the whole experience. That was not going to happen. And they called me, I think, twice prior to filming just to be like, hey, like, do you want to talk about this experience? Are you okay? You've disclosed this. And we just want to make sure that, like, is there any triggers that we can avoid for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, oh my God. And I was so grateful to like my recent like production company that I worked with, because I was just like, that this is not the norm. Like, this is
It's the
not.
opposite. Are there
Mm-hmm,
any triggers you can tell us that we can use to manipulate you?
yeah,
Like that's
exactly. And I'm like, oh my God, just like, that is so like, I as much as I like think that some producers are the devils, like, there are also there is an ethical way to do it.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's the reality of it. We can produce ethical reality TV. We are dramatic people. And you will get a different kind of drama, but you will get the drama. You will get the love triangles. You will get a villain sometimes, probably not every time, but maybe a villain doesn't need to be a super villain and they can just be someone who's a little catty or a little, too broy or something. I don't know. But
People
last
people want to be villains as well. Like, the villains are the ones that are remembered at the end of the day. So there are people that will volunteer as tribute to do that.
Well, now there's a whole show called House of Villains. I don't know. Have you heard of that?
Um, Jax is on it, I think, from
Oh,
Vanderpump
okay.
Rules. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
That's all I
cool.
saw.
What? There's a guy from my Love Is Blind season on it too, which I mean, it's like I don't know. I can't even.
Uh,
He's such a fickle dude,
he,
but
he leans into it at least.
he does, and he kind of he was kind to me a few months ago, so I don't have anything. I think he has good intentions, even if he doesn't always show them the right way. But anyway, so yeah, there's now a house of villains. So it's like, who's going to be the villain of the villains? Like, what are we doing?
Sign me
But
up.
anyway, yeah,
I'll
right,
get
right.
eaten alive in there.
Right. So one last question I want to ask you, then I'm going to give you the Ask Me Anything. So you've been through a lot and you've shared a lot here. There's going to be people that listen to this that probably are hate listening it. And there's going to be people that are probably going to listen to this and be like, oh my God, I had no idea Olivia was like such a real person. I thought she was just this psycho from Married at First Sight. Then there's going to be people that probably like just open their eyes a little bit more to the process. Like, what's something you want to say to people who are listening to this that they can take with them when they go and watch any reality show, or specifically something where they recognize someone who's, quote, a villain?
I just hope that anybody listening to this, whether it's hate listening or just to enjoy it and hopefully open their eyes a little bit more, I just hope you take this and really think about the humanity behind basically everything, and how people like me, reality TV, people in general, not villains, not victors, whatever, just think about how we must have been treated, and whatever you want to say to us, we've probably heard worse. But if you're going to say something horrible to us, you never know if it could be like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Like, you've just got to be careful and realize that we are real people that have been put through a horrible time, because I guarantee the only reality TV stars that are treated nicely are the ones that have seasonal contracts. So don't, just, if you have negative opinions, keep it to your group chats, keep it to yourself. It doesn't need to make its way into our DMs or our homes or us in public. Just be better than what you think we are. Because I guarantee, if I've never sent a hate message, to anybody. Some of the disgusting things that I get, I would never say to anybody. And it's like, by you doing that, you're already worse than me, or how you perceive me to be. So,
That's so good. That's such good advice.
took me a while to get there, though.
Yeah. No. I'm literally gonna earmark that as a clip to share when we come out with the episode. Wow. So I'm turning it over to you. Give you a chance to ask me anything that you're dying to know.
I think I just have one question, and it's like, so you've got this petition about just sort of, again, just saying like, hey guys, like, disclaimer, reality TV is not reality. Is there anything further that you think could go with that? Because I think that's a no-brainer. I think that's just so.
How are we not doing it already?
I
That's my
know.
question.
I
Because
know.
guess what? When you watch a documentary, there's something at the beginning that says there's reenactments in this, or you watch a movie about or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, inspired by actual events, right? That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that there was a dude with a chainsaw that killed a whole bunch of kids or teenagers in Texas, but like there's some reality to it. And it's like, how are we not at the very baseline saying that? And what that petition does is I literally took the language from my contract that says all the things they can do to me, and I reframed it into that. So like, heavily edited, out of order, defame, like all of these words are in the contract, and I just rewrote it to be in that disclaimer for the beginning. So the way I look at that is like, that's part one. That's like an easy, low hanging fruit of something they should already be doing. And by the way, they could go and do this to every show by tomorrow if they wanted to, because it's simple text. So that is kind of like, that was like a low hanging fruit where I was like, let's make an impact. We've got over 21,000 signatures. We only did one blast for it and then some social media promotion. So we're getting ready to do another one now, because we want to get it high enough to hand deliver it to these streaming networks. So it's going to be, so that's a good one. So I think there's so much more we can do. And so that's why I'm working in the United States to get us classified as employees instead of contractors, because then a lot of those contracts become null and void. Okay. So if we're declared employees in the United States, they can no longer say you can't be in a union, you can't talk about working conditions, because these are things that are all protected by our labor laws. So if we get that classification, we can now, anyone can speak up about what it was like working on any of these shows, because that's working conditions. They can no longer say you can't be a union, so we can start working with SAG-AFTRA to organize a union. So I think like here, those are the steps that we're taking to like get systematic change. And then I know that that travels globally, because all of these production companies are going to have to follow suit. Just someone has to lead, right? It's like that. Another thing I think is going to become a very powerful tool for us is, I think that we can start getting these shows, like when we can start figuring out and learning who's on these shows, and word of mouth travels, we can get them to demand better working conditions as they're filming. And maybe we get to a point where we're organizing strikes with specific casts where, hey, we're not coming back to filming, we're shutting this production down. And I think a lot of these things have to come once we get that designation that, you know, we should be considered employees, because it'll travel globally. And then at the same time, it'll give us the actual ability to organize strikes and to walk out without those illegal NDA portions of the contract. And then lastly, I think most importantly, I would love, so I kind of alluded to this earlier. I think something, but it's not the best to have a psychologist and therapist on the payroll of the production companies. I think we need independent therapists and psychologists working on these shows and working with individuals that have the power to say, you know what, Olivia's not in a good space. She is off for this weekend, and we will reevaluate, with a psych evaluation on Monday to determine if she's able to film, what she's able to film, what we will and won't be doing. And I think those types of things will really help protect people. And then also not worry about that therapist, damaging their income or damaging their paycheck by going, and fighting against the big conglomerate that's signing their check. So I think like that independent piece is something that we can hopefully get done relatively quickly, so that people have someone they can actually trust. That's maybe it's coming from our network of 600 plus at the UCAN Foundation, or maybe it's coming, somewhere else, or maybe it gets funded to another organization that's going to provide them. But I think that's so important because, as you said, even if Teresa had the best intentions, she's still getting a check from them. And there's only so much she can do because she doesn't have any authority outside of the authority given to them.
100%. I love that idea. Somebody to like during filming and post show and stuff. Like I've never been so mentally weak, and but like having somebody advocate for me at that time would have meant the absolute world. That would have made the absolute difference for me. So I think that's such an incredible point to make, and hopefully, touch wood, super achievable and just around the corner.
Yeah, I hope so. Here's the thing: change always comes from the bottom up, and we're never going to get them to do anything that is actually going to be systemic change. It's too profitable, it's too easy, and they don't have to follow any code of ethics or anything. So we all have to come together. And that's why I think it's going to be important for us to start striking shows. We're going to have to come together as a collective group. And listen, like you said earlier, too, there are the people that have recurring seasons like Vanderpump Rules, The Housewives here, all of that stuff. So that's going to be a little bit of a different task. But those people all started where you and I started at some
Yeah,
point, right? Like,
exactly.
so you got to remember where you came from. And hopefully that's going to be something that people are able to do, so it doesn't become a divide at any point. And it is all of our, however you want to put it, elements of our real life are being given for your entertainment. And
Absolutely.
right,
Voices.
we should have, right. And we should have some ethics with that because it is real life.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God. Amen.
Amen. So tell me, Olivia, where can people find, well, tell people, where can people find you online and how can they get connected with you?
So I'm mostly just on Instagram, so at Olive Frazer, so OLIVEFRAZER, and that's pretty much it. I am on OnlyFans, I am on Playboy, but yeah, you'll
You
find
did.
that link.
I meant to ask you that. You just did a
Oh,
Playboy shoot, right?
yeah, so I just got signed up as a Playboy bunny, so that's pretty cool. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, yeah, it's I've been doing OnlyFans for a while, which I wanted to do a little bit more like upscale content. So now we're on Playboy Centerfold.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
cool. Very
you.
cool.
Thank you.
Very
Yay.
cool. So yeah, we can find all that linked on your Instagram, or is that
Yes,
posted? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly that.
Cool. Great. We'll put
People,
that link down here for everyone to click through too. So thanks again for coming on. And more importantly, again, just to reiterate, thank you for being vulnerable. And remember, 1 minute at a time is all you got to worry about
thank you,
when
Nick.
it's
Thank you
hard.
so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.